Auzubillahi Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Jianamu, Pakhera, Lady, How, Churushumme, Washmale, Ohio, Gonzalez, Guten Morgen, Ola, Boyo, Privet, Kaifahal, Halishama Chatur, Ahlan Wasalam, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho Gracias, Swabi, Bali Garea, Host Galden and Ayosaya, Huyamura, Chivato, Chihal, Yud, Kalimera, Khairutan, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Hajar Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well, that you're ready to get your day started with us. But not just that, ladies and gentlemen, the weather over here in Islamabad and the Twin Cities have been phenomenal, par extraordinaire. I mean, it's like every single day when you wake up, you're like, okay, you gotta love Islamabad, you gotta love the places around Islamabad. But we will talk about that. First things first, I think I really need to ask, how my colleagues' Eid was, and then we will certainly move on from there. Hello, Hajar. Assalamu alaikum. How was your Eid?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah, it was very good, very nice, and I think it was how Eid are supposed to be, the meat and the great usual, and that is followed by obviously the meetha, the sheer korma, because it is known as the meaty Eid. But Shahzad, I would like to ask you one question. So out of the two virtues, generosity and justice, which one do you prefer, or which one do you think is a higher virtue?
I guess it's justice.
Yes.
Without a doubt, because imagine that, if the justice is going to prevail, I believe that, there will be more generosity too as well.
That's very true. And thank you so much for saying that, highlighting that, because when we talk about the justice, it seems as if the generosity should be the higher virtue, because obviously when we are talking about the generous person or a generous man or a generous woman, so he or she will bestow or give the people a lot out of her own rights, right? But when we talk about justice, justice means setting things in their own right places, and generosity means diverting yourself from that the right scheme of the things. And if you closely observe the nature, if you closely observe the universe, you will find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has struck a very and a right balance in all of these things, and you will find this balance in everything that manifests. And that is why Allah says in the Quran that there are signs for those who think and reflect, not for those who are the moments. So generally people or the human man, because the man is bestowed with the intellect. So for those who think and reflect, for those who have this intellectual capacity to ponder upon, to reflect upon, to ruminate upon, they can find the right balance that is struck in the universe.
Exactly.
Right?
So people, for everybody who's out there, because I do believe, and Hajar, thank you so much for pointing this out as well. I do believe that people, who make sure that, that justice is going to prevail, and they're going to set their priorities like that, they will certainly be able to identify where their generosity really needs to be more, and where they certainly need to help people more as well. So it's all about setting those priorities, and Allah obviously keeps on saying that, please make sure that we give out to people as well. But first things first is that Allah is actually going to be the most justice or the dispenser of the justice as well. But without any further ado, I think we have jumped a little bit as well, and where obviously it was Eid and, Hajra. So this is my interesting story. I don't know whether Hajra is ready for it or not.
Sure.
But I still remember that, when I got married, that the first time I got my Eid was somewhat very amazing. Then the next year, because my brother-in-law was getting married, my Eid dropped down like a minus 10,000.
Okay.
Then now eventually, they have babies as well. So now my Eid is somewhat around 5,000 from my in-laws.
Right.
So Alhamdulillah, you just recently got married. You might have received a lot of Eid, and it's a beautiful thing. How people come over, they make sure कि हमारी बेटी है, हम इसके लिए ईदी लेकर आए. How was it for you?
Alhamdulillah, so this is something that is personal, and I don't want to discuss it on the public TV or national television. But when we talked about justice or generosity, so one of the examples that came into my mind was about the organs. So for example, in a body, if you have a failed organ, right, and generosity is that the other organs, they are overworking because that failed organ is not working. But the justice is that all the organs are working in their right manner, in their right balance. And that is why the concept of justice is so beautiful, and it strikes the right balance, right? Because everything is working in its right manner. Having said that,
and yeah, okay, so I think I have something in connection to this, and it's all right, it's your personal choice to talk about it or not, and I'm really extremely sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
That without letting you know, I was having this conversation. Now, where we speak of justice, there's this one picture that I'm going to put in front of you, and I would ask you whether do you think that that this gentleman was denied justice, or do you think that it is according to the merit of justice as well? So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a picture of a prisoner from Iowa, United States, and there's a very interesting story behind that prisoner. Please, can we have a good look at the picture? All right. So prisoner who died and came back to life argues life sentence is technically over. Now, this is a very interesting debate, and that is that imagine that because of this gentleman, you know, he was actually undergoing something related to heart, it was a surgery or something, and the heart stopped functioning, then there was a lot of resuscitation which actually took place, and the prisoner kept on arguing that because technically that I've died, my death sentence should be over. So what do you believe? You know, according to justice, do you think that this prisoner needs to be out of the jail and not behind the bars?
That's a very interesting debate, because the first thing then when my eyesight went into that picture, I thought the person is Trump, and I was like, okay, you know, that's a very interesting debate about the justice or not.
Yeah.
But I think I really don't know what was his crime as to he was serving there. But
First degree murder attempt, yes.
Oh my God. So I think I really do. And I don't know if he was tried for the capital punishment or not, because in the United States, there are some states which have denied this punishment of the capital punishment. But I really don't know the severity of the crime, and I really don't know that what exactly, how exactly he was
But
charged.
imagine, because he got a death sentence, he died in between, and then, you know, he was resuscitated, and then he came back to life. So he keeps on arguing that because I died, you know, my death sentence should be over.
Obviously, a thief is never going to admit that he stole, right?
True,
so he
true,
was always going to say that I am the most masoom, the most innocent person ever alive. So whoever is in the jail wants to get freedom, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, justice delayed is justice denied, as we say. But I think the justice was served to him. But I think there was a saying that my teacher used to say, that if you're a fool in the United States, you're going to make a lot of money. So I think that this very, how do you define it, foolish sort of the wisdom is really liked in, I think, in the Western countries a lot.
Exactly, and you know, but it connects with the topic that we are discussing today as well, and you kind of mentioned it over here. Now imagine that you said that, you know, that for all of your organs to kind of work properly happens to be because of the justice that you do to your body. Now imagine that one of the justice that we really need to do as Pakistanis is like eat in moderate amounts. I think that's something that everybody needs to do, that we eat in moderate amounts. Imagine that was Eid, everywhere we went, you know, either it was mutton kadai, sevia, you know, there was too much that people were doing these days as well. You go to any restaurant, you know, the parkings were full, there wasn't even a parking spot. Just I think 2 days ago I went with my father, there was like a 60-minute wait, and we had to wait because then there was no choice of us going back home and then cooking at 11 in the night as well. So what should we really do, you know? And not just that, I think in addition to this, a lot of people these days keep a calorie count. You know, there's another terminology these days which is being used, that's VO2 max, you know, that the oxygen which is being consumed, you know, the levels need to be risen in your body, but they are not because people weren't really aware of it. Then how do you really need to make sure that you gain lean muscle? If you do not want muscle, you know, how do you, you know, lose fat? So to kind of answer all of these questions, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by somebody who happens to be a clinical dietitian. She happens to be Miss Anisa Suhail. Hello Anisa, Assalamu alaikum, good morning. How are you feeling today?
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much.
How was your Eid?
Oh, it was amazing. It was my first Eid after marriage as well. So
Mashallah.
I get what you said all about it.
Yes, I think
She didn't
it's
even
just
say
like-
anything.
No, but there's a personal connection.
Yeah.
I see what she meant.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think now we need to kickstart a conversation, and like Shahzad mentioned, so then generally there is this trend and especially awareness among the young people about having healthy eating habits or having healthy food, because we are suffering in our lifestyles, right? And then there, again, like Shahzad mentioned, so there is a lot of this concept of dieting, or what exactly, how to eat in a moderate amount, right? So what exactly are your views on that? Walk us through a good, healthy dietary habits.
The concept of dieting in Pakistan is actually very wrong, although it's starting to get better nowadays with more information and with access to internet and like proper knowledge from professionals available on social media. So it's getting better. But as a layman, most of the laymen and local people, they think, or the people who are not properly aware of it, they mostly think that dieting means keeping yourself hungry or like starving yourself, but that's not true, because an interesting phenomena in our body that our body goes through is called starvation mode. When we keep our body hungry enough, our body actually starts to store whatever we're eating as fat. So we might be starving ourselves for purposes of weight loss or something like that, but in turn our body is actually gaining weight. So this is something we need to understand, that the concept of diet needs to be more related to eating in moderation and healthy diet, and eating all foods, keeping a variety of foods, that is very important because
Exactly. Thank you so much for saying that. So let's begin with how people will have different goals and how to achieve that with the help of your diet. And because, for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, for people like me who go to the gym, even our trainers, certified trainers or nutritionists would always come up and be like, that 70% it's your diet and 30% is your exercise. So that's how important diet is. So please make sure that you keep that in mind. Now, first of all, for people who are obese, who are diabetic, let's get started with them as well. Can't really consume a lot of sugar, but they have issues as well. People with thyroid, let's get started with them, and who are not really willing to do any sort of exercise, but just because of the fact that they want to eat the right food. Do you think that it will help them get a little healthier, reduce a little weight?
it will, especially the last thing you mentioned, that the people who don't want to exercise and move too much and they still want to lose weight and they still want to keep themselves in shape.
Even when they are, even when they are at their jobs, they might not even stand up. They would only sit on their chairs. Yes, that's it.
A great way to do that is clean eating. The concept of clean eating. Now, what does clean eating teaches us? Clean eating is basically eating a variety of food, healthy food, and it's basically elimination of all processed, ultra-processed, junk, and fast food.
Okay.
That's it.
Right.
And once you eliminate all of these things,
I think we need to talk about it. Zindagi bhi to enjoy करनी है साथ. कहीं हल्का burger patty, कुछ हल्का सा कुछ chicken.
जिंदगी वो उसमें enjoy हो जाती है, cheat meals में enjoy हो
Okay,
जाती है.
so cheat meals. Okay, we will get cheat meals. Please continue.
Yes, and then so once you eliminate all these food groups, these artificial and ultra-processed chemical-based foods, what you get is naturally organic and the food that's available in our on the radies and everything that we hardly go to, hardly choose.
And I think being a Pakistani, we take it for granted a lot, but I think we are blessed in a way that if we strive and struggle, we can get a lot of organic food in the Pakistan. So for example, we can get the desi gandum if we do, a certain amount of struggle in getting that. And then we have the fresh vegetables from the market. Obviously, there are a certain sort of pros and cons to it. But again, like Shahzad mentioned, whenever we are hungry, the first thought that rushes into our mind is either oily pakoras, samosas, or nuggets, or chips or patties. So is the yummy or the tasty food always healthy? And I mean, I don't know whether it's with me or not, but generally, do you feel like that, Shahzad? So whenever we are feeling hungry, I don't think so my mind would race towards the dalein or sabzi, or which is very healthy, obviously, but it's not very yummy or tasty in my mind.
Must be healthy, but it's just that that whenever you are hungry, whenever you feel like munching, you will never think about it. You will at least, if there's nothing available, the last thing that you will think about is crisp. That's it. And I don't know whether you should have it or not, but I don't think that's a great idea.
That's mostly because we have craving, and our mind, because everything has a fuel or something that it runs on. Our mind, the primary source of fuel for our brain is glucose.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why we crave for carbohydrate based stuff, it's because our mind needs that food or energy. So if we are feeding ourselves properly in proper macros throughout the day, we won't crave. And even if we do crave, you talked about health, snacks, we always gravitate towards tasty and yummy and fried food. There's an actual proper field in culinary now that you do healthy bakes and healthy food, and there's keto recipes, and there's vegetarian recipe, and there are high protein recipes. There's so much in the culinary and like the recipe world nowadays.
But there's so much which goes into it. There's a lot of hard work which goes into it. Obviously, we've brought in like an air fryer and whatnot. But every time, if you want to eat healthy, it's you cooking for yourself.
Yes.
And that's not really the right concept over here in Pakistan. I mean, I do wonder that, our mothers, or probably, for future generations, that everybody needs to kind of learn how to cook. Because imagine that for anybody who's actually maintained a good body, ladies and gentlemen, they at least spend 1 or 2 hours in the kitchen every single day to make and prepare meals for them. But in addition to this, because you have spoken about glucose, and there's one thing which I know for sure, and that is that, for your body, because at times what happens is that we might not consume a lot of carbohydrates, we might not consume a lot of sugar, and that might be the primary source for us, from carbohydrates, the energy that the body gets. And even for me, as a person who goes to the gym, I do feel कि जिस दिन रोटी नहीं खाई उस दिन वजन ही उठान हो रहा, ठीक है? So, and it might be a myth, we'll talk about it. But what happens is that the research, this is something which I read somewhere, says that that if you do not have enough energy to your body, what the body will do is that it will take energy from your lean muscles. Is that correct?
There are steps to utilization of energy in terms of our body, in terms of how body metabolism works. The first primary source is always carbohydrate. That's how our body works.
Roti chawal.
And that is roti chawal. Yes, that is why when we go zero carbohydrate or zero carb or zero fruit and all those zero sugar diets, people do feel a lot of fatigue and everything, because that's the primary source and you're depriving your body of main source. And then the second source of fuel that your body opts is fat. So that is where the exercise comes, and those HIIT exercises and all those, there's a sweet spot, and after 10-15 minutes or after half an hour you start to do low intensity exercises. It's because that is the time when you're actually when your body actually starts to burn fat to get that energy. And then the third part is when the muscle comes in. So ideally we don't want our body to get to that protein part, because if we're not giving our body enough protein, then our body is going to basically starve ourselves of protein, which means that we're becoming malnourished.
And how much protein do you think that we require on daily basis?
Okay, for a person who's not doing any gym work or any special proper exercises that will actually cause wear and tear of muscles, in which case you need more protein. But generally speaking, if a person weighs say 100 kg, then he needs at least to get 100 grams per day. If a person is 50 kg, then he needs at least to get 50 grams of protein per day. And now the sources of protein can vary from red meat or white meat.
And if you're going to the gym and you're working out, there's wear and tear of the muscle, so then how do you think that the protein is going to vary? I think that's a question which everybody needs to learn.
Yes, and so that depends on the kind of exercises you're doing. If you're doing bulking or if you're doing cutting, and how the macronutrient ratio has been split. Nice. That sweet spot of that proportion of macronutrients is 40-40-20. Usually people do that. 40% is carbohydrate, 40% is protein, and 20% is fat. This is for bulking and cutting, whichever you choose from. And then now for people who don't know, bulking means that you are
gaining muscle.
Yes, you're gaining muscle and you are actually eating more calories.
Yeah, and it actually kind of not just muscle, but I think you kind of gain fat too as well in your body while you're bulking. And when you move on towards cutting, that certainly means going in towards lean muscles and reducing body fat as well.
And I think there is one very trendy thing, I think, which you alluded to in your conversation, and let's develop on that, which is the keto diets and intermittent fasting. So these are very trendy concepts nowadays, and you will find that there is an entire market out there, and people are selling all of these customized and food out there in which they are trying to adjust the body types, right?
Somebody's missing me today.
So, and how effective do you think is the keto diets and intermittent fasting? Because a lot of people who have done that, they don't speak highly of the keto dieting, especially because of that.
It's difficult.
Yes.
I personally believe that at the end of the day, there's marketing. It is,
of course,
at the end of the day, that's all it is to it. Because
detox waters that are being sold, they're so expensive.
All these trendy diets, all these fad diets, they might be good for a certain time period. They might give you a certain goal, 3 months into a certain diet, and you get your toned body and everything. They might be good for a short-term goal. But if you're looking for something sustainable, that's actually going to help you live a healthy lifestyle, that's actually going to teach your kids something, because you're choosing something, making a certain choice on the Khane ki table, then that is, it needs to be sustainable diet. And clean eating is the easiest thing. You asked me about obese and diabetic patients. Pakistan being the #1 country in the whole world in terms of diabetes, most of the diseases in Pakistan, they come from insulin resistance and insulin insensitivity. And a lot of it is related to us eating lots and lots of unlimited carbohydrates and refined carbohydrates. So just cutting on the refined carbohydrates, choosing complex carbohydrates, that's not any diet. You're still eating your fruits, you're still eating your roti, you're still eating your chawal, but it's just choosing the right complex carbohydrates or not throwing away the fiber that's naturally taking
So
the
which
sachet
is
part
why
of
let's
carbohydrate.
bring it down to, where, nowadays a lot of, my mother always speaks about chakki ka atta or
Yes.
brown
Yes.
rice,
Oh, yes.
so complex carbohydrates, and, let's differentiate in
Or
between them
shakkar,
as well.
for that
Yes,
matter.
shakkar and
Yes.
everything.
A very easy way to differentiate is browns are better than whites.
Okay.
So all the browns would have naturally
Right.
have more fiber, and all the whites will be devoid of
I
fiber.
hope the world realizes that the browns are better than the whites.
Yeah, that's an interesting statement to
That's
make.
a good one.
And now I think let's talk about one of the very important element which is being removed from our life. That is the element of the mobility, right? So Shahzad talked about how there are certain amount of people, a group of people, sorry, who are very health conscious, fitness conscious. They are going to the gyms, but obviously this facility is not available to everyone out there, and you have to pay a certain amount to get through that, right? And because of the lack of the mobility, we are generally watching and we are witnessing that there are diseases that are on the rise. So you mentioned about the diabetes,
Yes.
right? And I think one of the things that curtails the diabetes is a daily walk or the exercise, right? So for those people who do not have this luxury of the safe spaces, who can't go outside of their homes, obviously diet is an important, but the mobility is very important. So as a clinical dietitian, what sort of advice would you dole out to those people?
I honestly think that it all comes down to your willpower and how much you want to actually do something.
Right.
Because where there's a will, there's a way.
True.
Because there are standing exercises, 100-mile walk. You can literally stand in one area like 5'4"
Right.
something small area, and then you can actually burn fat. You can walk up and down the stairs. You can you can do skipping. You can do
Right.
walk in your next to your home park or something. And it's not about, yes, some people do have, Allah Ta'ala inko zyada diya hota, they do opt for luxury and everything, but it does not mean that the person who does not has that luxury cannot opt for mobility and everything.
Right.
Exactly, that's wonderful, which is why towards the end, ladies and gentlemen, there's this one simple question which every Pakistani needs to ask, and that is
Right.
that, for the kind of backgrounds we have, shukr alhamdulillah, first of all, Allah Miyan, aapka bahut, Allah Ta'ala, aapka bahut bahut shukriya, shukr alhamdulillah. But I certainly need to ask you over here is that for the kind of households me and Haja we come from, or hail from, or everybody else comes from, is dal, roti, salan.
Yes.
So how do you think that we kind of manage it around dal, roti, salan? Because for us, keto is fancy, intermittent
Yes.
fasting is difficult. For us to move and go out to the parks, it's difficult. We are only prepared or nourished by our parents to kind of go work, earn, come back home, sleep, and go back to work
Yes.
as well. And in between, we only have dal, roti, salan, pizza, burger. So how do we make sure that in every ordinary Pakistani household, we stay healthy even while consuming dal, roti, salan?
Again, I used the words of clean eating and sustainable eating before, so anybody who's looking into it can research on it further. But one thing that I always say in almost every show is the concept of my plate. Now, what that entails is that a regular size plate of about
40,
7 to 8
20?
inches, about that, the more portion control is what I'm suggesting towards.
Pirche le le,
For-
pirchon mein rakha hua salan, thoda sa.
No, that's not how it is.
Yeah.
You divide your plate into 3 parts. The first part, 1/4 part goes to the carbohydrates,
Okay.
which is obviously like pasta or chawal or roti or anything that you're opting. Also starchy vegetables. So if you're having roti with aloo ki bhujia, then all you're having is carbohydrates.
yes,
So
yes.
there's nothing else to your khana. Second half of it, sorry, not second portion of it, 1/4 of it is given to proteins. So all like eggs and dal and meat and everything that goes into that portion. Third and fourth portion goes into your fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
And there's a small portion of dairy alongside. So you can make kebabs, and then you should always have salad in your diet. There's a myth that you can't eat salad at night. Most of the people get bloated and everything because of eating raw vegetables. So if you're someone like that, you can just saute the vegetables for a while, but that's perfect to eat after that.
Okay.
But this is a general portion division that if person follows, even at a shadi or a dawat or Eid dawat or anything, eat out, hang out,
Yeah.
anything, I think they can manage their clean eating concept easily and have
even with our
everything.
salads, there's either tomatoes, onions.
Oh yes,
and
bring
the
variety into your
chili
salads
garlic,
as well.
that's it.
Yeah,
Bring
yeah.
variety
The
into
good
your salads
seasoning,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Because
Alright.
there's a lot.
So we really need, like, we obviously need, because I think that cabbage can actually be a good source of iron too as well, broccoli, I think all of
Broccoli,
these
yeah.
vegetables can really be brought in as well. But thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
You
you
so
so
much
much.
for
Thank
being
you
so
so much.
well aware of what people really need to do. For everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, it's your life. You should always be in control of it. At least if you're not in control of your life, you should be in control of your mouth.
But don't over control it, right? So after a short break, we are going to come back and have an interesting discussion. Don't go anywhere. Good morning.
Good morning. Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. And it's a wonderful morning over here in Islamabad. The weather is amazing. The conversations are amazing too as well. Earlier, we were in conversation with a clinical dietitian, so imagine that she knew that, okay, even if you come from a Pakistani household where it's only roti, dal, salan and pyaz, tomato wala salad, so what you really need to do to kind of stay healthy. Now imagine that this is the kind of a profession that wherever she's going to go, she's going to touch lives. She's going to make sure that she's going to give them an advice which will take them towards a healthier living as well. And that's exactly what we do. So imagine me and Hajar coming over here speaking about all of those things, actually kind of make sure, us making sure that we kind of touch lives with the right information and with the right knowledge as well. There's a lot of research which goes into it. So it's all about touching lives. Now imagine that people from different walks of life in perspective or with perspective to their careers, wherever they will go, they will make sense. They will make sure that they kind of give more awareness to people. And such is the case with lawyers too as well. And which is why, today we wanted to be in conversation with somebody who actually happens to be an advocate, High Court as well. And she's going to talk about the role of lawyers, how they can actually kind of do wonderful things for the country, how they can touch different lives, how can they make sure that that a lot of people who live in a misery because of the fact that justice was denied or delayed, I think what we really need to kind of do is then kind of speak about what wonderful things can lawyers do over here towards the development of the country, towards the prosperity of the country. And to talk about it, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by somebody who happens to be Miss Saida Kashmala. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you?
Walaikum assalam, good morning, I'm good. What about you?
Absolutely perfect.
And I think we started with the maxim that justice delayed is justice denied, right? And I think in Pakistan, we often see the manifestation of this happening across a lot, right? And which is unfortunately because of the fact that there's a huge baggage of the caseloads on the justice system, right? So as a lawyer, what sort of solutions do you advise so we can lessen the burden and also we can dispense the justice, because obviously justice delayed is justice denied?
So there are two things, when we talk about delaying the justice, there are two things. One, we have come up with new solutions, one of which is ADR, the Alternative Dispute Resolution. But there's also the fact that we need more judges in the courts.
Okay.
So if I talk about Islamabad, there have been 15 years and we have no new seats for judges.
Okay.
So the system is still the same. The cases, you see the backlog keeps increasing.
True.
So we do need to have more judges because ADR is something which is very new to people,
Right.
and people are not really, welcoming to it right now. Right now, when you go into a civil litigation and a judge asks you to fill on the pro forma, you need to have the consent of your client to actually go to the ADR, and they would not opt for it because they are not accustomed to it. So we have to have these things, together to make the change in it. We cannot pick one and go ahead
And
with it.
I think there's one thing that is also particularly for me as a commoner, as a layperson, which I do feel can be an obstacle in the early dispensation of the justice, is also the language, the way the law is coded or the frame. Because I wanted to comprehend one part of it, aspect of it, because I was studying it and I had an exam, and I think it was most difficult part of it, memorizing it and then understanding the meaning of it, because there were so many nods and no's and no's.
And then reproducing it word to word.
Oh my God, it was a hell of
Like,
a task
okay, what's happening with me?
doing that. Yes. So how can we make sure that we can, dispense the awareness to the masses out there so they are more aware of that? Because obviously when you have such sort of a case, the first thing you do is you hire a lawyer, and the lawyer has its own her or own fees, right? And that might be the case that the people who are destitute, who are underprivileged, who do not have the resources to do that. And I think this is why we see that there's a lot of backlog of the cases, because the case drags on and on and on, and there is no justice in the side. So how can we make sure that there's more awareness, or is the government or state working on this sort of the aspect of the justice delivery?
So when we talk about, making people understand the law, there are many people working on it in their private capacities as well, on the government level as well, on the NGOs level as well. I do try to, explain people law in a very simple language. I sometimes make just like a 2-minute YouTube videos on my channel, and it's just to inform people that they should not be betrayed by a lawyer when they go to one, and they should understand it beforehand. But and there's also a whole thing of legal reformings going on, where they try to make the law as understandable as they can. But then, when you think about it, if you go to a doctor, he would use million of the terms that you would understand.
Lymphosarcoma and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
All the Greek terms, Latin terms, yeah.
So there are technicalities involved. Exactly. So there are technicalities involved in every profession, and some wants to, as our elders used to say, that a Hakim would die with his secrets. So they want to keep it a secret because they want to earn money out of it.
Yeah, that's a trade secret.
Yeah, exactly. So there are works that are in progress, but also the fact that some things would take ages to actually be very common among people.
And while we're talking about it as well, I think one of the factors which can actually contribute towards, so that it does not take ages, it does not take it too long, is for a lot of people to come into this field and learn about it and then practice law. Now we have seen that, while we were in our universities, I think only 10 or 15% of the people actually picked up on law, and then they kind of went on to pursue a career in law. And alhamdulillah, now out of this 15%, imagine that if the number was in total was 10, I think only 2 or 3 are practicing lawyers. The others have kind of went away, and they're like, okay, this is not for us. How do you think that, you as a lawyer or other people as lawyers can actually kind of be open to, creating more avenues for youngsters? Because for them to understand, for them to be associated with a law firm which is good enough, where they can actually learn. Because over here in Pakistan, we will see adverts in, kind of newspapers as well, that we need somebody who's young and, with 5 years of experience. Nobody's ready to kind of hire somebody who does not have any sort of experience. And over here, we have hands-on experiences as well. So everybody's learning on their job. How do you think you, as role model, can open up more avenues for people and youngsters?
So I think when we talk about young lawyers, their responsibility is not litigation only, because society is multidimensional. So they have the role of basically reformers as well. And in that case is where we come in as opening avenues for others. So when I started my practice, I was looking for criminal law chambers, and I couldn't find many who would, basically have a girl practice a criminal law, right? Because they would think that
because
it's
there was
too
this
difficult.
stigma as well, कि पता नहीं खातून है, कैसे करेगी criminal, all of that.
So, when I have my independent practice, I basically hire girls only. So now it's my thing that I'm gonna have this space that is dedicated to women. So
why only women though? That's the question which I want to ask.
Because there are so many places for men to go.
Even if it costs you the case?
No.
So why not the right person for the right job?
No. So basically, when you have your own independent practice, you can have as many people as you want as your associates, right?
Yes.
But if I talk about men, they would have 15 chambers that would be open to have them as their associates.
True.
When I talk about a woman, she would have only 2 options.
True.
So let's make more options.
All right. So
for
you're
them
giving
in
them
that
more
way.
space as well, and once
Exactly.
the obviously.
And once they are in their practice, then they would only get the cases if they are capable of that.
I don't think I should ask too many questions. What if
Yeah,
she kind of calls me to the court and she's like, okay, he's asking
yeah,
these
so
questions.
we're going to save this feminist debate for some other day.
Yes.
But now let's talk about something which you mentioned, which is about the ADRs, and you said that this practice has not gained a lot of traction within our people. But I was reading one of the case study, and I think think they were appreciating the advent of the ADRs because, for example, there are a lot of divorce cases that come to ADR centers, and generally the environment of the court is such that it's very confrontational, right? So there's one party that is standing in one particular position, the other party is standing in other particular position. But in the ADRs, they are providing you a sort of a TV lounge, sort of an environment where you come, where you discuss things, and they give you tea and biscuits. So there's not that confrontational environment which is usually present in the court, right? So when you talk about it, it has not gained traction. What are the reasons behind it, and how can we make it more popularize this concept among the, especially because the underdeserved or the underprivileged people, they certainly need the advent of
And is it popular already? Because while the ADR centers were being actually kind of for example, the training centers were taking place, or the trainings were taking place, or they were constituted the centers. We were there at that point of time. We were in the Ministry of Law, me and Haja, our entire team went. And it looked wonderful that, okay, it's going to be a solution for people. There were trainers hired from all the way UK and world over. They were here training, our judges and lawyers.
And
so do you think that it's working out?
First of all, it started only last year.
Yep.
So it would take
in
time.
Islamabad.
In Islamabad. And even, when they started, they basically opened the place. They said that they are going to replicate the same in the Lahore High Court as well. So you have to see that people would need their time. Secondly, generally, one would think that it costs nothing, but that's not the reality of it. When you actually go to court and you see that it would cost you a lot sometimes. And I have seen cases where the lawyer is doing a case as a pro bono, but when it is referred to ADR, they won't be doing that. So they won't opt for it. So right now, I think it's in very early stages. It would need more time to be properly established and for people to actually, get accustomed to it. So how it's going to work, and would it be helpful for them or not?
And this is one thing I think for the awareness of the people, and that is that, so for example, that, if you take your case to the alternate dispute resolution center, do you think that you will still need a lawyer, or there's no need for you to have a lawyer, and then you can sit down with the other party and then kind of discuss it? There's going to be a judge there around, so how does it work?
I think there are mediators there, right?
So basically there are three things. There are mediations, there are negotiations, and then there are basically neutral people who are discussing things among themselves. But there's supposed to be a third person.
So we're going back to the jirga system sort of a thing.
In a way you can say. So basically there should be a third party that is a non-partisan sort of a way who would
who's more of apolitical.
Exactly, and I think one cannot be a neutral or apolitical. So living in Pakistan, can one be apolitical? I don't think so. Or maybe one should not be.
One of the successful,
take a good look at us, we're apolitical people, alhamdulillah.
I think one of the successful case study when it comes to the justice dispensation, which we need to talk on the state television, is the federal ombudsman, and it is very successful in dispensation of the early justice because you don't need very fancy
15 days,
lawyers.
Man, that's
Yes. So do you think it is very effective in dispensing the justice? Do you feel that there is a need to replicate their model in other cities, because especially people who do not belong to Islamabad or who are living in the fringes of a country, they do not have very easy access to ombudsman, right? But again, ombudsman is very successful in the dispensation of the justice.
So when we talk about ombudsperson, so you would see that it gained popularity. I would really want to commend Kashmala Tariq, because she had done great work. When she was here, she had done great work. And now we have Ma'am Fauzia Bakar, and she is an amazing and a very learned person as well. So she was someone who basically, made it popular among the masses. Before that, people didn't even knew that. And then, they basically added the inheritance law in it as well. So when a woman who are not getting her property right, she would be contacted, she can contact ombudsperson as well and can gain something out of it. But then, basically judgment came where, there was a stay on that law. The property law was stayed by High Court in a way. So when things progress, there are hurdles as well. And even when we talk about ombudsperson, once you get the relief from there, so you have the right to appeal to president. You will have to have the lawyer present to present your case in front of the president of Pakistan. And I have done that. I have presented my case in front of Alvi Sahab. So we cannot say that it will happen exactly in 15 days.
Yeah.
But yes, it is speedy. And
Depending on the availability of the president himself.
exactly.
As well. Yeah.
So otherwise, I'm not saying it is not as, you know, flexible as the other courts are, because there is a huge issue of having so many cases.
And whether courts should be flexible or not, that's a debate for another day as well. But very quickly towards the end, and that is that obviously when, you know, we do see, unfortunately, I have to say it because, you know, that's me being honest. Unfortunately, if there's somebody, you know, who's kind of, you know, police caught him for murder, you know, we do know, you know, how much they will have to bribe to survive in the jail as well, right? Now, imagine such is the case, which I'm going to put on to how, you know, ADRs can actually take a lot of benefit out of, you know, two people or two parties who really need to resolve. For example, if it's a dispute of 2 billion or 3 billion rupees, you know, they would certainly know that at least 40–50% of the money can actually be dispensed to the ADRs as well, and that too in cash, you know, so it's not going to any bank. How do you think that, you know, if any individual is actually facing such an issue in the ADR center, where do you think he or she should go to kind of negate that impact of people asking for money to kind of get their issues resolved?
So that's the thing, you know, when you establish something new, people just establish the basis of
और
it.
ये अच्छा इसमें गलती, you know, very sorry that I have to say to Nuru, इसमें गलती किसी और की नहीं, हमारी खुद है, क्योंकि हम खुद एक शॉर्टकट लगाना चाहते हैं, किसी को पैसे देके अपना मसला हल करना चाहते हैं.
Exactly, and we are so used to doing that that if we get something different, we are not like, let's do it the quick way.
Yeah.
Let's not, you know, get into
That's true.
the
That's
lengthy
true.
way of it. But when we establish something, we establish the basis of it. Nobody have yet thought that how that is going to be solved.
True.
And then, you know, you end up being in the court again for the same thing, and then it's going to be a lengthy process.
True.
If you negotiate and you don't end up being on the same point, you don't agree to it, then you are back in the court as well. So it will, you know, have that length, and it will take it time, and people need to understand the rules of it. Right now, when the trainings happened, there were only very few lawyers who were trained in it. So as more people would, you know, partake in it, for the training you have to have resources as well.
True.
So after taking a degree, you have to take another degree, you have to pass a law GAT, and so, you know, all
It's a
of
lengthy
these
process.
framework would take time.
Exactly, but thank you so much
Thank
for
you
being
so
with
much.
us. Lovely to be in
Thank you so
conversation with you, and please make sure that you know that you continue to, you know, serve the women of the country, number one, and, you know, please make sure that, you know, for everybody who's out there who comes looking for justice, that you are always there for them to, you know, kind of help them as well. For everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, more than, you know, it's the people. So I think this is what the takeaway is, more than the people within the field that they will touch your life. I think it's really important for you to be more aware of it. You know, that, okay, where am I headed? What do I really need to do? Make sure that you seek advice, and that's the Prophet's way as well. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to tell us, he's guided us, that even if you're going to get some stuff and you're not sure of what the price would be, go to 2 or 3 different places, ask for what the price is, and then decide whether where do you need to buy it from as well. So people in seeking advice a lot of times shy away. Please make sure that you do not do that. But if you are to seek advice, for example, if you go to Lahore, you won't be seeking advice from somebody who's a usual or an often traveler in between Peshawar and Islamabad. You really need to be in discussion with somebody who travels to Lahore. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're heading out. Please make sure that you kind of look after yourselves. Write to us on our Facebook page as well, which is with the name of
World This Morning.
on Twitter,
World This Morning.
on Daily Motion, Instagram, it's World This Morning. Until next time, look after yourselves. We'll see you tomorrow. Today, it happens to be, or it looks like as if it's a day full of fritters, samosas and pakoras. Yeah, let's do that with a little bit of jalebi and gud wali cha. Until next time, look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3.
Good morning.
Have a great day.